Now, there's a new twist in the upcoming French elections. The left-wing candidate, Jean-Luc Melenchon, is gaining ground in the polls. Mélenchon was in a distant 5th place originally in the polls.
Now he's within touching distance of François Fillon, so fighting for that 3rd position. That's according to Orthodox polls published by Le Point magazine on Friday. For more on the upcoming French elections and the political story, how it rubs up against the ECB, Simon French is still with us, chief economist at Panmure Gordon. So when you look at the polling around France, I mean, this battle, Mélenchon versus Fillon battling it out for 3rd spot. Of course, the chance of either of them getting into the 2nd round still looks to be remote, but it would. The story that we're running on the Bloomberg today talks about how it would add to market risks around this election because, of course, Mélenchon is somebody who's not said he wants to take France out of the EU, but he's pretty anti some French institutions, some EU institutions.
Yeah, you're right to say that François Fillon, Jean-Luc Melenchon, they don't really stand a chance of making it into the 2nd round. But what happens to their voters when they get reallocated in that 2nd round? And you're right, Jean-Luc Melenchon, left-of-centre domestic agenda, but also internationally quite separatist, a more France-first agenda, which means that the more he garners support around that cause, the more that may shift in the 2nd round towards Marine Le Pen, which I've consistently said on this show. I think the markets are still underpricing the likelihood of her gathering a lot of those votes that are given up in the 1st round and reallocated in the 2nd.
And this is something which was written quite a bit about in a number of op-eds over the weekend on Bloomberg, which is those countries that get to vote for presidents as opposed to, let's say, electoral systems like in the UK, even though we went for Brexit. But those who get to vote for a president get to vent their real aggression in a presidential vote. But in normal democracy, it takes a long, long time for that populism really to get through into power. If we look at what we are writing about this morning on Bloomberg, how to fix the euro area without breaking it. And this is what's going to be important about whoever wins in the French election. It's binary. Either Le Pen wants to rip it up, or Macron wants to absolutely embolden the euro project.
Yeah, nobody wants the status quo out of
Nobody
the 5.
wants it, yeah.
Yeah, but Manus, I'm not convinced that Macron or Fillon, or indeed anybody in the centre ground of French politics, is really having an honest conversation with the electorate. I had the pleasure of watching a couple of the debates. No one is talking about fiscal redistribution from rich countries to poor countries. That's issue 1 that
they don't want to do that, Simon.
Of course they don't want to do it, so they're not speaking to their electorate about it. But it's absolutely essential, if you're going to complete monetary union, to do that. Also, with the pooling of political responsibility, more responsibility taken out of France, devolved to a central administration, that's a 2nd crucial part of completing monetary union. Who in the electoral campaign up against Marine Le Pen and to some extent Jean-Luc Melenchon are talking about that? They're trying to stay silent on it. And if we're trying to learn lessons from Brexit, we'd say that the ruling parties did not speak about migration for 5 years, and then the electorate bit them when they said, you haven't done this, we've got an opportunity to protest. They haven't had the honest conversation. I think the French electorate stand to potentially do the same thing.
It's a brave politician, then, in the wake of Brexit, who chooses to take a very different path and not tackle the ground that the populists stand on at all. And that's what you're calling for there. Are you suggesting that we need a sort of a bold expression of further unity, such as Eurobonds? I mean, it's been talked about as a big expression of something that would unify the currency union more.
Says he doesn't want that.
Short term, I'm certain that Emmanuel Macron, the front runner in this campaign, is being told by his pollsters, do not talk about Eurobonds, do not talk about greater federalism, because it does not play well with the marginal voter. But he cannot suggest that he's trying to make monetary union more secure, work more for France and the Eurozone countries, without talking about those necessary reforms. So it's the denial, it's the outright lying in some cases around the implications of what it is for France to be in the Euro that will eventually, and it may not be in this presidential election, but it will eventually lead to the French electorate or another electorate going, we'll go for someone, we'll hold our nose and we'll vote for someone who maybe has quite a difficult domestic agenda, but at least will solve that big problem of monetary union.
I can't believe you used the word politician and lie in the same phrase. Simon French. You'll get emails. Let's talk about something terribly boring. Inflation. I mean, whilst we concern ourselves about political outcomes, some light relief, some would say, light relief or not for the European Central Bank. I've got a lovely funky chart for you. This is 30-year inflation swaps. What's it telling us? That we're banging our heads against 2%. This is 30-year swaps. It keeps going up and up and up, bang, up to 2%,
Yep.
and then away. We've tried successively to hit this inflation target. It's getting harder, and it's going to get harder for the European Central Bank to really maintain any kind of momentum here in terms of reflation.
Yeah, two words, base effects. Base effects in Q1, I spoke about it before the break, very material in the euro because actually core inflation, if you strip out the impacts of currency through the food route and through energy route and the recovering oil price, actually core inflation stuck below 1%. Forget 2%, 1%. And therefore, actually, the market got...
I was trying to be generous.
Well,
to
yeah,
the
no, I
ECB.
know you were. But the market got itself quite excited about the idea that the ECB may end QE early. Peter Pryor poured cold water on that, didn't he, last week?
Yes.
And that's absolutely right, because at the moment, there is nothing in the core of the Eurozone economy that says we're going to be at 2% and stay at 2%, or indeed exceed it to the point where you change the path of monetary policy.
So all the taper talk is premature?
I do think it is, yeah.